Welcome to another episode of Discourse. On this episode, we're going to be ranking every Silent Planet album. My name is Nathan, and with me are my co hosts Kyle and Jeff. Gentlemen, it's the first episode of the year covering a band like Silent Planet. How are y'all feeling?
What a way to start the year. I'm very excited about this. Having Garrett on and going back and listening to these albums has been a real treat. I forgot, Nathan, like you said earlier before we started, I forgot how much I truly love this band.
Yeah.
It's not often that we get to talk about a band that you're hard pressed to find a bad song. It's just such a rich discography, a really interesting listen. If you haven't listened, I'd encourage you to to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in this discography, and I'm very thankful for all the patrons who voted this as our first episode of the year, because I am itching to get into it because I really do love this band. But I also want to ask y'all, Jeff, I'll borrow your signature question from when we have guests. What's y'all's relationship with this band? Your history with Silent Planet?
Mine started with When the End Began. That was kind of my introduction to them.
Nathan, you showed me everything with sound pretty much when it came out, and I love that album now far more than I did when I heard it, and I really loved it when I heard it. But now, just kind of with the context of Garrett as a person and sort of everything those songs mean, and I mean every song he's written means a lot, but it's such a fascinating album to listen to lyrically. Not only musically, but listen to it musically. There's nothing wrong with that either, man. Like they put out bangers, and so I've enjoyed pretty much everything they've put out since.
Definitely, as Kyle kind of hinted at there, I got into this band with everything with sound. That came out at a time where I was like kind of really exploring a lot of heavier music and just like very active on r/metalcore. Just every release day. What's coming out? What can I get into? And people were going crazy for this album. And I was like, okay, well, I got to check it out. I feel like it probably started with Panic Room for me. That was probably the first thing I heard. And have followed the band ever since and have just really, really thoroughly enjoyed everything they've done. Just so rich, so dense, so much to chew on, both lyrically and instrumentally. It's the thinking man's metalcore. And guys, since this is the thinking man's metalcore, I have a little surprise for you too.
Oh.
I think we opened tonight's episode up with a little game. And because we have not decided yet who will be leading this episode, I think this is going to be the perfect way to do it. So guys, I've collected a number of quotes, if you will, some passages from classical literature, and then some passages from Silent Planet.
Oh my gosh.
But doesn't like so many of Silent Planet's lyrics pull from
Yes, and I took that into consideration. I tried not to pull. I didn't try to do anything tricky here and do like this is a Silent Planet interpretation of this book or this philosopher or this poem or anything like that. But yes, that is a good and fair point, Kyle. And so the way this is going to work is I'm going to read the quote. You're going to tell me if you think it's a quote from classic literature or a Silent Planet lyric. And then I'll also give you another point if you can name either the book or the author or the song or the album it's from. So there's a chance for 2 points per each quote.
Oh my gosh.
And whoever has the most points is going to lead this episode. But if neither of you can get to 5 points, I'm going to lead the episode. So this first one is really easy. And it is, I think, therefore I am. Gentlemen, is that a Silent Planet lyric or a classical literature quote?
That is
Well, that is a philosophy quote right there.
Philosophy.
Gentlemen, you are correct. Who said that?
Rene Descartes.
Whoa, this guy.
That is correct. That is correct. So,
Beast.
Jeff, that is 2 points for you. And Kyle, a mere 1.
Dude, I didn't know that this was going to be hurtful.
Through me is the way to the city of woe. Through me is the way to sorrow eternal. Through me is the way to the lost below. Justice moved my architect supernal.
Definitely Silent Planet.
Yeah, I would go Silent Planet as well.
That's incorrect.
Of course it
That
is. Wait,
is-
can I still guess who said it?
Yes.
I'm gonna go with.
And this is an honors code. You better not Google it.
First off, I'm not gonna remember the word salad you just spit at me. Because the moment you opened your mouth, I was like, clearly Silent Planet.
Yeah.
Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Dude, I don't know. It sounds biblical.
I'm gonna
I'll
go
read
Dante.
it again.
I'm gonna go Dante.
Dante's a great
Kyle!
Really?
Correct. It is Dante Alighieri from
Dude,
the
great pull.
Inferno.
I funny thing is, I knew of 2 literary works when I mentioned it earlier, and that was because the Depths 3 pulls from Dante's Inferno and Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. So, holy moly, that felt good.
Great pull.
Great job. That's
We're tied up.
wow.
It's tied up.
That
2
was
to
a
2.
guess.
Sister Moon, are we all that's left? Just a silent satellite and the sigh of flesh. Come rest your lunar head on my breast. Listen to the terror tear in my chest. Who said it?
Dude, this is hard, man.
I think it's Silent. I think this one's Silent Planet.
I'm gonna agree with that again and say that this is Silent Planet.
Gentlemen, that is correct. What
Agreed.
song or album is this from?
I don't think it's Redivider, but you said Sister Moon, so I'm gonna go Redivider.
Jeff, do you have a guess?
Song or album? Can I stick with album?
Sure.
I'll go Everything with Sound. I think that does sound like something that would be on there. But I can't remember what
It is not. This is taken from Kyle. You just mentioned it. Depths 3.
Man.
I sung of chaos and eternal night, taught by the heavenly muse to venture down the dark descent and up to reascend. Classical literature or Silent Planet?
Classical literature.
You say it again?
I sung of chaos and eternal night, taught by the heavenly muse to venture down the dark descent and up to reascend.
I'm gonna say it's classical literature as well.
Boys, that is correct.
Is it Nietzsche?
All right,
Kyle,
let me
do you
guess
have a
one.
guess? Yeah, I'll let Kyle guess first.
I don't know, dude. Wait. Philosopher. I feel like there's a philosopher named.
You're just gonna guess a random philosopher.
Who's the guy that? I'll go with Dante.
Dante again. No. This is John Milton from Paradise Lost.
Ah, yeah. Darn, this is tough.
All right, how many we got left, Nathan?
We got a couple more. We're no longer quite ourselves, nor reflections of someone else. Lover, do you feel that tension as we drift between silence and eternity?
It's got to be Silent Planet.
Gotta be Silent Planet.
It is, in fact, Silent Planet.
Because I'm not a coward, I'm gonna guess the song.
Okay.
I will go because I think it's off of When the End Began, and I will say, After Dusk.
I'm gonna go Understanding Love is Lost.
No, this is from First Father, off of Everything Was Sound. And so if we need a tiebreaker here, after this next quote, Jeff, you're gonna lead this episode.
All right.
So our final one, the barren wastes bearing down on me. Cracks in the clouds leave me wondering, did the oceans dry out, return to the sky for a privileged perspective of our final goodbye?
Oh, this is definitely Silent Planet. And
Kyle, do you have a guess?
For the sake of the game, I do think this is a Silent Planet. I'm gonna guess the album though. The Night God Slept.
Jeff, do you have a guess? Because that is correct. It is Silent Planet.
I think it's When the End Began.
Wow. It is The Night God Slept.
Let's freaking go.
Oh,
So
man.
Kyle,
Oh, I don't want to listen.
your prize for winning this
Oh.
silly game is you get to lead this episode. But before we get into it, I'm going to plug the social media real quick. If you want to join the discourse, you can follow us on Twitter at Discog_pod, on TikTok at Discog Discourse, on Instagram at discog.discourse. We also have a Patreon for anyone interested in supporting the show. As I mentioned earlier, you get to vote on what bands we cover when we don't have guests. You'll also get bonus episodes like the one we'll be recording alongside this episode, where we will determine the consensus top 10 Silent Planet songs. And as you'll hear later, our second tier donors, our diehards, can read off their own rankings on the show. Also, if you could be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. Also, leave a comment. We have a couple comments here that we're going to shout out this episode because people leave comments on Spotify and on YouTube, and I think those are well worth shouting out. We see your comments. We love reading them. Continue to leave them. So this first one is from Lucian Medina. They said, "The Devil Wears Prada. This album set out to do one thing, and they achieved it. They made an album that looks back at their 20-year career while simultaneously spitting on the fans of those years. Physical releases of Flowers also included a bonus track called Play the Old Expletive, and you can find it on YouTube. Imagine Seeing Red by Architects, but uninspired and uncalled for. They sought out a fan conflict where there was none. There were some good songs in When You're Gone, Eyes, Cure Me, and My Paradise." Great comment. Had to shout this out because it is so well worded. Captures so many of my thoughts perfectly. I'll also shout out their top 5 albums that they included. They said to be more positive. They gave their top 9 and their EP of the years, but I'm just going to read their 5. Number 5, speaking of Seeing Red, The Sky, the Earth, and All Between by Architects. 4 is Shapeshifter by Memphis Mayfire. 3 is Silos by Starset. 2 is There Was a Light Here by Demon Hunter. And 1 is Wasteland by Wolves at the Gate. Gentlemen, what do we think of that 5?
I can't say I agree with it, but I respect it. Everyone is entitled to their opinion.
Yeah.
Wolves at the Gate is a name I have not heard in a long time. This next comment from Spotify is from Joel Garf. They said, "I can't believe none of you have Unprocessed new album in your top 5. You guys should do an episode on them. I listen to that and keep it quiet on repeat while running a compactor for a few hours. I love the music talk, fellas. Keep it going strong in 2026. We love a Greyhaven shout out. What can I say?" Also, Unprocessed is sick. It's like, what if Polyphia had lyrics? And it's super cool.
I'll definitely check them out. Yeah, I appreciate the recommendation.
These next 2 comments are from YouTube, the YouTube side of things. This first one is from Red String 6. They said, "My favorite podcast of the year, and it didn't disappoint. You all had great top 5s. His personal top 5 are 5, The Callous Cowboys, I Don't Want to See You in Heaven. 4, Spirit Box, Tsunami Sea. 3, Arm's Length, There's a Whole World Out There. 2 is Thrice, Horizons West. And then 1 is Greyhaven, Keep It Quiet." Who of us had Greyhaven at number 1?
I had them at number 1. Cowboys at number 2, I'm pretty sure.
I think that's right. But Greyhaven made all of our lists. This list is like the combination of the 3 of our tastes, I think. You got some more
really.
post-hardcore pop punk, you got the metalcore, and you got the weird stuff with the Cowboys. You know, it's the perfect intersection of the 3 of us. So that's a great list. And this last one we're going to shout out is from Itty Bitty Liddy 1531. They said, "The episode I've been waiting for. Merry late Christmas and Happy New Year's, guys. Thanks for all the episodes. Greyhaven is AOTY without a doubt. What an album. Been on repeat ever since release." I didn't realize that all of these had Greyhaven shoutouts, I guess besides the first one. But great band. What can I say? The band of the people.
Great band, great album.
Exactly. So that's all the housekeeping. And now we're going to get into this Silent Planet discography ranking. And if this is your first episode, welcome to the show. Kyle is going to be leading our discussion, and we will go from his least favorite Silent Planet album to his favorite. And as he reveals them, Jeff and I will also reveal where they are in our list, and we'll all have a cohesive discussion about it together. So Kyle, without further ado, what is your least favorite Silent Planet album?
This is tough because yesterday this album was my number 2. And I really do love this album. But my number 5 album is The Night God Slept.
The Fall Off from number 2. That's my number 4.
I really like this album. It's almost like a first of its kind in terms of off the rip, the depth of the lyrics, the storytelling that's in this album. I mean, like, you just go track by track and it's a different world. It's a different story of suffering and how people deal with that. What holds it back for me is the production value. I think the production is very of its time. I think the sort of wailing siren guitars start to grate on me and get on my nerves a little bit throughout. There are obviously some highs, but I think the cleans are pretty weak throughout this album. And I think they try to bury it in some ways and try to I think the production's at fault mostly here because I think the vocals are the vocal performance is strong and they do a really good job with a lot of the heavy portions. Those are the shortcomings. It's a first LP, but again, you can't ignore the songwriting talent, not only from lyrical perspective, but from just a song structure perspective and how they're already kind of poking and prodding at what is normal or what we would consider to be appropriate in metalcore.
A standard song structure.
Yeah, like it's pretty dang interesting. The song that stands out in that perspective most to me is Dark Strand with
great
the
song.
guitar riff almost makes your skin crawl. And just the way that they mess with the effects of that specific riff where they'll throw a ton of distortion on it and then have it be bare, almost wide open, and just the chaos that kind of falls around something so weird. And when you look into sort of what they wrote that about, or what Garrett wrote that about, of the individual suffering of a mother and child that were separated in the Hiroshima bombings. It's like, first off, how'd you think of that? Like, where did that? Because that is like that's something where it's like, oh man, like that's a real subject. Like that's real. That is real suffering, and that's a real story. And to make it feel that way musically is so intense and so interesting. And I think they do a great job of that in this album. I think they do a better job of that throughout the rest of their discography, especially in my favorite 3 of their albums. I think the production holds it back, but the songwriting and the song subject does not hold it back.
For sure. And I mean, like, even just throughout this entire album, you know, not only songs about individual people's suffering, but like individual women's suffering. You know, the concept of this album being Garrett meeting these 7 women and hearing their stories and the difficult things they've gone through. Such a fascinating concept for a metalcore band. Like it's so specific. I feel like Silent Planet is so good at being specific with their concepts, with their songs. Like it's just so well thought out and so well done, so masterfully crafted. And I think the songs in particular that stand out from that perspective for me are like, obviously Dark Strand, the song itself is insane, lyrically and instrumentally, but also XX City Grave.
Yes.
Like some of the most incredible lyrics on the album, in my opinion. Just harrowing, very real, and like very visceral the way he's talking about these topics. That song is not only lyrically incredible and heavy and dense and all these things, but also instrumentally incredible. And so when I look at these two things with this lyrical depth, this instrumental depth, like the fact that this band's sound was so well developed at this point in their career is crazy. And Kyle, I do agree the production is maybe the one thing that holds it back a little bit. It's very of the times. I wouldn't even say it's bad. I would just say compared to the incredible production that the rest of this discography has, it is maybe noticeably weaker on here. But even then, I mean, it doesn't keep me from really enjoying what I'm hearing. It sounds good enough. It's really bass heavy. It's raw. I like it a lot. And even if I didn't like the original production, they have the remixed and remastered version of it, and it sounds good. It's different. It's a lot more clear. I don't know which one I prefer, truthfully, but the album itself is just so strong. Native Blood is another one of my favorites. Like that song is so fantastic. And I love the lyricism, like about the erasure of Native American culture in the US. It's so just, again, I keep saying it, but well done. And also instrumentally, I mean, that chorus is fantastic. The riffs are sick. I love that groove kind of breakdown they hit in the second verse with that main lead riff over it that eventually kind of fades out or like carries out throughout the rest of the song.
Mhm.
It's excellent. And one other song I'll mention to kind of pick off my favorites here, Wasteland. Just
That's my favorite.
heavy. And I love that kind of atmospheric lead guitar line they have that kind of comes in throughout the song. Yeah, I think ultimately for me, the fact that this is a debut is mind blowing. It lays the foundation for their sound so well. And I think it does more than just lay the foundation. Like I think often when we say that it's like, yeah, it lays the foundation, but they obviously build off it in better ways on later albums. This lays the foundation and then some because this is such an enjoyable listen.
Yeah, I agree with both of what you guys are saying. Imagine creating an album and the main theme is going to be the Odyssey. It's going to be looking at the problem of evil and how God can allow these terrible events to occur on the planet. I mean, it's a pretty incredible undertaking to make for a band. And I think it's so well executed on here. Nathan, you mentioned some XX City Grave, Tiny Hands, Darkstrand, Wasteland are my favorites. And I'm so mad I missed that quote on Native Blood, that last question, because I literally was listening to that song today and I thought how great the lyrics are in that song. And that one that you brought up, I literally memorized it and I just misquoted it, misattributed it to the wrong album. So I'm really mad about that. And then, I mean, we haven't even really touched on Depths 2 yet, but what a beautiful culmination, both sonically and also lyrically, about, I guess, Nathan, you touched on the kind of the story bit of it, but kind of the main character, Garrett, reflecting on these stories of suffering. And then in his own reflection about his mental health and his own suffering, and kind of reckoning all this suffering with a good, benevolent, all-powerful God. I think it's a really interesting tale. And I think, yes, it sets the foundation, but I also don't... I think you can make a strong argument that this is their strongest thematic, literary, metaphorical, allegorical, poetic album in their entire discography. And if you said that, I wouldn't say that you're wrong. Now, I will agree...
I think it has some pretty tough competition, if I'm being honest. I mean, like, there's a reason, it was kind of a little bit of a bit to do classical literature or Silent Planet quote. But like the reason I wanted to do that is because I really do think, this is some really impressive art from a lyrical storytelling perspective that does kind of remind me so much of what it is that makes classical literature great. Like it's very profound, very beautifully worded. Like the language is it's just incredible. And it's just really unfortunate that a lot of people will never experience this art because of the unfortunate barrier to entry that is a screamed vocal delivery.
Yeah, I agree.
This is a really incredible modern philosophical art, and it also happens to be metalcore.
And you just spend so much time with it. Sorry, Kyle, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to say one other aspect that makes great classic literature great and what makes this great is that you can really reflect on it and really spend a lot of time on it and dig into it. And it's just crazy that going through these albums, I was doing that. I was actually sitting down and thinking and going through it and looking up the footnotes and, trying to figure out what exactly is being talked about here. And that to me is just a sign of how amazing these lyrics are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I wanted to just the theme of kind of women suffering and those stories, starting with the well, with the woman at the well, the story in the Bible is it's just a cool way to start it off, and that's such a deep part of Silent Planet's DNA is religion and Christianity in particular, and just the thought that goes into that, and to sort of spotlight the opening track, which the well is a pretty good track.
Yeah,
the way just starting their album off. I know it's not technically the start of the discography, but starting their LP stretch off with that is cool. And I just admire the more you dig into every song, and we'll talk about this with every single album, but the more you dig, just the more rich it is. And the more like you want to learn about these songs. And I know we've talked about it, and I know we'll talk about it again, but Garrett, the lead singer of Silent Planet, has kind of these track by track breakdown lyrical analyses on YouTube, which if anybody is just slightly interested, they should listen to those, because we obviously don't have time to go into a lyrical deep dive of every single song, but every single song is extremely rich with meaning, at least in their first 4 LPs.
Definitely. And it's so incredible. And I think Garrett really is one of the best to ever do it lyrically, maybe. Certainly in the alternative music landscape, but I would maybe wager in general. Certainly it's not everyone's cup of tea, because it is very intellectual, very thought provoking. Like, it's very heady. That's the word I'm looking for. It's very heady, which, not everyone is necessarily looking for in music. But if you are, this is some of the best that's ever been written. And I think hearing him talk about these things, hearing his perspective as a Christian, as someone who is religious, on many of these topics that the church often maybe doesn't like to talk about as much. Like, it's very thought provoking. It's incredible stuff. And it's just, he has a lot going on in his head. That's for sure. And hearing the ways that it comes to fruition in these songs is really incredible, because yes, they're very heavy or very heady, but also I don't know how they ride this line or find this balance. They're all also just kind of enjoyable to listen to. Like, if they come on shuffle and you aren't necessarily paying super close attention to the lyrics, it's incredible how they manage to do that throughout this entire discography.
Yeah, 100%. I would just briefly say I have this at number 5 because of what Kyle was saying about the production. And I also, my favorite thing about Garrett screaming is his lows. And it's just not really that present on this album. Like, it's there, like Wasteland has it, but it's not, as much, not really as much anywhere else. And so that's something that I was really looking for. And I think he refines his screaming a lot more on future albums as well.
Definitely. His vocals do get better as these albums go on.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
undeniable.
They get good really quick, but you can hear him continue to add new tools to his arsenal, get better. And it's, a lot of early on Silent Planet is that very kind of slam poetry-esque delivery.
Right.
Which, I mean, is a hallmark of their sound, I would say. And kind of lends itself well to that heady conceptual nature of these albums. And then later it gets a little more guttural. I mean, you start hearing that on the next album in their discography. But yeah, man, I think we've laid the foundation for a lot of the places our discussions may go tonight, much in the same way that this album really laid the foundation for this discography very well. So, Kyle, that's a transition point, baby. You got another decision to make.
I do, and this decision, this one is a little more emotional. Well, I don't know. The production on this record is unbelievable. My number 4 is Superbloom.
Ooh, that's my number 3.
That's my number 3 as well. Yeah.
Well, fellas, why? Why do you like it so much?
I mean, okay. This was my number 3 album of the year when it came out. I think I had it at number 3, and for good reason. This album is so cool. It really does sound like it comes from another world sometimes, with how groovy it is, how different it is, how dissonant it is. It almost doesn't sound like Silent Planet, but then it always does end up sounding like Silent Planet. If you don't get what I mean, I highly recommend you go check out this album, because it is so unique in their discography and so different. I almost look at this album in kind of 2 parts, because I think you have, at least in my opinion, some of the more experimental tracks in the first half, like Offworld, or obviously Collider, Euphoria. I'm not the biggest on Euphoria. Dreamwalker and then Antimatter obviously is like their big standout single, or big, huge kind of blew up. I think it has like 26 million streams. But then the second half of this album, I think, is where you really get to the good stuff. Signal, Anunnaki, and Nexus are just absolutely bonkers from beginning to end. And I think you can make an argument those are 3 of their top 10 songs in their entire discography. Just how crazy and balls to the wall those songs are. And Nexus is cool because there's so many references to previous tracks and albums within that song. And the nexus, sort of stands for the center, I think, of this like hive mind that the album is talking about. And so it's cool that it's like the nexus is integrating all these ideas from previous albums and tracks. It's very meta. And then Superbloom is such an interesting, very Midsummer-esque closer, where it kind of is more in a major key, but it's kind of off-putting. It's like it's the end, but I don't feel right about this. It's kind of making me uncomfortable. And so I think it's such a cool ending to this album, which is about a kid finding a crashed, I think alien ship or something, and then getting infected with this hive mind plant alien being that ends up taking over him, and I think taking over the entire world at some point and making it like he becomes the leader of this hive mind. I think, if I'm not mistaken,
something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. I couldn't really find a great distillation of what exactly was going on, and I know that the songs are out of order chronologically if you listen to it, so it's very hard to tell exactly what's going on. Yeah, but I think when you're looking, for me, this album has the cool theme with some unique, heavy, groovy songs that really push their brand forward in a way that I just can't get enough. I always return to this album over and over and over. The only thing I'll say is that sometimes I miss old Silent Planet, and that I sometimes miss the depth of the more reflective, literary, philosophical themes, and not so much kind of the sci-fi, alien, horror themes that are found more on this album. But that's more of personal taste, and I don't want that to detract too much from the album. And so that's my spiel. For me,
that's like I definitely get where you're coming from there, and I kind of agree to a certain extent. But for me, them jumping from like reflective, philosophical topics to paranormal, sci-fi, unexplained, I'm like, man, you're just hopping from one interest to another for me. So I'm all in.
And awesome. and it makes sense, right? Like Iridescent is about, and we'll get there obviously, but like it had to have been a really challenging album to write, like just emotionally for Garrett and for the whole band. And so like, just, I don't know, keeping that in mind and being like, hell yeah, dude, write a sci-fi album. Like, like that, you deserve it, brother. Like, I don't know. I kind of like was turned off by it, but then the more you listen to it, it's like they still bring in these fascinating sci-fi musical concepts, and they do it really well, as Jeff was saying. And yeah, anyways, Nathan, go ahead.
Speaking of those kind of those sci-fi elements, I feel like when you listen through this discography, you can kind of sense this sonic evolution between each album. They're taking incremental steps and to add things to their sound to continue to push themselves as songwriters. And I feel like this is probably the biggest jump they've ever taken between albums. They're doing a lot of experimenting on here. And I will also say, often when we talk about musical evolution in the metalcore realm, we don't always necessarily like the direction these bands are going when they change their sound. That's not the case for Silent Planet. I really love this direction for them. I think it is really, really cool because they're going in this new direction, but it's still very much rooted in that ethereal, atmospheric sound that is very specific to Silent Planet. Like Jeff, you talked about, this sounds exactly like Silent Planet, but nothing like Silent Planet. And I think it's that atmosphere that kind of ties it all together. They have these very specific scales and chords and sounds that they seem to come back to, at least atmospherically. And I just think this is a great evolution of their sound. And for me, one of the standout things that they add is the heavier influence, or the heavier emphasis rather, on electronic elements in songs like Offworlder and Antimatter that have this like pulsating electronic bass line, the ambient lead riffs, among like so many other intricate electric textural ideas that come in and out of the songs, which makes sense to me. I was reading an interview around the time this album came out, and the Silent Planet lads were saying like, yeah, there's a lot of industrial and electronic ideas. We were inspired a lot by Hesitation Marks by Nine Inch Nails and wanted to kind of do our version of that. And I mean, as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense to me. I totally hear that. And if I remember correctly, I was way higher on that album than y'all were when we talked about Nine Inch Nails. but like hearing Silent Planet's version of that is really cool.
Yeah, let me say something on that because I didn't
Yeah.
know that. And uh, Silent Planet does not. They might like take what Nine Inch Nails. Let me say this. Nine Inch Nails did it to the 100% extreme.
Oh
Silent
yeah.
Planet just took those ideas and put them in actual songs. Nine Inch Nails just, in many cases, like they do, made noise, just made those noises for a 7.5 minute song. If I remember correctly. Apologies, continue.
I like that album. I think there's some really good songs on
Yeah,
there.
I
But
mean, like, yeah, forget it.
but I will say I like Silent Planet's version of it more. And I
Yeah,
mean,
because there's structure and it's like an actual song. Again, I love, I like Nine Inch Nails. I respect Nine Inch Nails. Those fellas are doing things that no one else has done and no one else ever will. Maybe for good reason in a lot of ways. Like this one, where it's almost like they're like, let's trick people into thinking we're geniuses. And
whoa, that's a big
I
claim.
well, for that album in particular, in my opinion, because that's like the Alien one, right? The one that I really didn't like.
Um, the one you really didn't like was Year Zero. I'm looking at our list now.
Okay,
Hesitation
maybe
Marks
I'm
you
thinking.
also didn't like. That was your seventh favorite out of 8. So
Sorry,
maybe it is.
let me get.
It doesn't matter. This is a tangent. You don't like it. I do. That's fine. Um,
Oh, okay. A little. I was actually thinking of Year Zero, a little less. So my critique turned it to Year Zero. They were trying to trick us,
woof.
but
They were trying to
I'm
trick us.
sorry. Please
Hesitation Marks.
continue. I
Very good.
apologize,
No, it's okay. This is what it's all about. We're discoursing.
dude. That is so true.
I would also say it's very easy to see why a song like Antimatter was such a big song for this band. Like, finally, some of the mainstream success that this band deserves and has deserved for so long. That song is so cool. It's everything that like blockbuster metalcore can be, in my opinion. It's just so cool the way that song starts off, continues to evolve, and the way they build on top of that main riff drop in the song and add new things to it each time. It's excellent. That's definitely one of my favorites on here.
It's always fun thinking like someone ripping antimatter and being like, all right, what does the next track sound like? And they turn on Signal. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
just a monster track.
Yeah. Jeff, my interpretation of the album, from what I could figure, Kid Goes Missing, Extraterrestrial Encounter. I thought it was a meteor, UFO, same difference, whatever. But kind of more of what it's inspired by is a lot of these different paranormal encounters and like kind of cryptid mythologies from specifically the forests of Northern California, where a lot of this band is from, and the way that people kind of mysteriously disappear for seemingly no reason. And also like random, very specific paranormal reports from like the CIA as they did their psychic testing programs and all this kind of stuff. And so it's all these sci-fi concepts, but really what's going on here is it's Garrett talking about his own radical transformation and shift in mindset following this band's like near death experience in their van accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so really like any good science fiction, it is using these heady concepts or like fictitious ideas and imagery to explore the current lived experience and how deeply trauma can change people. And so like that takes us from being like, oh, just kind of a sci-fi concept album to like, oh no, this like really understands sci-fi and what it is about it that makes like really good sci-fi. And you know, they they're just so good at songwriting, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think this is a natural, well, maybe not natural, but I agree with you, Nathan. This is a really good direction. It's a good direction for them to go. Cause, and obviously, I like their three preceding albums more than this, but to leave a sound that they do really well. Well, and they're not truly leaving it, but to kind of just again step out,
Yeah.
start implementing this more science fiction theme is it's refreshing. It's refreshing to see a band
It honestly is
completely revamp their souls, not not just go out of their way to be like, we're different now and you should be fine with that. Like they're still doing what they do well, really, really, really well, but they're introducing different story arcs and different characters and different methods of kind of capturing you again. And I think, I know we've talked about it, but I think Antimatter is sort of the antithesis of that in this album. Of you've got just weird tempo, weird guitar noises, but it works so well because there's still that explosive energy that they bring, and there's really nothing watered down. Well, that's not true. The reason this is number 4 for me and not higher is almost solely because I really dislike Euphoria. I think Dreamwalker loses pretty much all momentum as well. I think those are sort of the two sores of the album. And I'm not crazy about the Overgrowth, even though I think the end of the Overgrowth is really cool. It takes 2 minutes to get to anything substantial.
Yeah.
But those are the only critiques, and side of Euphoria, they're kind of nitpicky.
I agree with Euphoria and Dreamwalker, to be honest.
Yeah, I just think those are the biggest stains.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the Overgrowth is kind of an interesting one because of the song structure. It's kind of weird. Like it's not like a verse chorus thing. It's like almost like a 3-act story arc. So it's split into 3 parts. So you get the first movement, the second movement, and the third movement. And I think that's kind of an interesting idea that kind of tells the story. And I think that kind of circles back to like the Overgrowth. This area is the meteor landing site, and this is where the main character, Jeff, like you were talking about, gets infected with this alien fungus or whatever it is that kind of links him to the hive mind or takes him to Offworlder, which in the context of the story, he's like transported to this alternate dimension or something like that and fighting against the hive mind. There's so much happening on this album.
Man, Offworlder, what a track.
It's so good.
So good, dude. And it's almost like Gloom-esque, like Gloom in the Corner-esque with the storytelling and like the bullets and the fight. It always reminds me like when there's intense fictional battles that are done well, which is hard to come by. I'm always like, shout out, dude. Shout out the Bellas.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say, it's just circling back to what Jeff said about the ending and title track Superbloom, is they're playing rock for half the song, but it's rock that you haven't ever heard them play before. Like they're playing like the balance and composure rock or like basement rock. Like they're not
it's
playing,
kind of Deftones-esque a little bit.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And then like they morph it into more of a crescendo and a giant ending. But that track is always like, I always look at my phone if I'm not paying super close attention, like just plugging in at work. And I was looking at my phone because I'm like, surely the album's over and like we're listening to another band or something different, or this is a one-off. But no, it's really cool that they did that. I'm in.
Jeff, you mentioned it earlier. It's so different from the rest of the album. And what I gathered that in the sense of the concept and the story, you know, he's taken off-world. He's had all these crazy experiences. You know, the back half of this album is heavy. Signal, Anunnaki, Nexus. Like, these are crazy Silent Planet songs, and they really hit like a stride of heavy here. And then you get Re-Entry. And so to me, it sounds like, you know, he's been successful in this mission or whatever it is of taking over or like defeating the hive mind. He's able to go back home, but he's changed. You know, he's different. He'll never be the same. And it almost has this like transcendent feeling to the song where this person is now at a higher level than they were before, even though they went through all these very difficult things, these very traumatic things. They are ultimately better off for it. Maybe I'm spitballing here on what the concept has ties in, but like it does feel very major key. It does feel very not necessarily triumphant, but it feels like you got the good ending maybe. But man, there's just so much to digest on this album. I think the last thing I'll say about it is for me, every Silent Planet album, I talked about the rooted in this ethereal kind of atmosphere. And on every Silent Planet album, it almost evokes kind of a very different, very subtle emotion in me when I listen to it. And this album to me creates like a very obviously futuristic with the sci-fi concepts, but like very pressing, very ominous atmosphere. Jeff, I think you used that word earlier. A lot of this album does feel very ominous. Like I don't know if I could explain exactly what it is about the atmosphere that makes it evoke this different emotion. And I think I could say that about all the ones that evoke these emotions. But like, there's just some choices on here that are so interesting and so cinematic. Like, I know y'all don't really like this song, but the end of Euphoria is a moment where I'm like, that is very ominous and atmospheric, where the song ends with these huge notes that just ring out on the guitar in this descending progression downwards, and it just feels so oppressive and ominous. And then songs like Dreamwalker and Nexus have these massive distressed and strained sounding choruses and all the dissonance that's in there. And I think the fact that it has that heavy stretch also makes it feel kind of pressing. But yeah, I mean, what an album. Excellent science fiction. And I'm very excited to hear what they do next. And if the new singles they've been putting out are anything to go by, it's going to be very good.
Yeah.
Sounds like they're going to continue to develop this sound. Also, we didn't really talk about the fact that this is like Garrett's first like go at doing the clean vocals, or like the lead clean vocals for this band too, which I remember, I think when we had him on the show, we kind of talked about how like that was kind of a thing for him. He wasn't sure how that was going to go, but he sounds so good as like a solo frontman for this band. And I think a song like Collider really emphasizes that, because the hook in that song is so excellent. I think that's another one of my favorites on here. Yeah, just really, really amazing stuff from Silent Planet.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Well said.
I feel like I got a little word salady in there when I was talking about the atmosphere, but
hey,
I'll take what I get.
Followed. It was good description, and I appreciate you talking about it. And I learned a thing or two. You describing what actually happens in the album, because I got a little lost. So
look, to be clear, I don't know if that's what actually happens in the album. This one is like one of the two albums that doesn't have a track by track analysis, which I really wish it did. I would love to dig into that, but that's just my interpretation based on what they've said in interviews, the meta contextual, release of the album following their own lived experiences and all that. It's just what I interpret the album to mean. So you can't tell me I'm wrong.
And that lines up pretty well with there's a big thread on Reddit of, because Silent Planet posted like pictures leading up to the album, and someone put the pictures, lyrics, song titles all together, and that's seemingly pretty spot on.
I want to read through that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
Yeah. All right, well, Kyle,
Fellas,
number 3.
We've come to my number 3 favorite album by Silent Planet, and it is Iridescent.
Yes, good.
And the name of the game here, this is by far, in my opinion, their heaviest album. And boy, does it scratch it. What are you?
The album before this one is literally like the whole theme of it is like heaviness and destruction and apocalypse.
Yeah, Iridescent. It's pretty heavy.
It is. I'm not denying that.
This is song for song, pound for pound. This is the album with the most unrelenting, brutal tracks. There are some that aren't.
I see where
it's definitely fast. It feels fast from the beginning. I remember whenever I listen to this album, I'm always just kind of blown away by how quick it goes, and it in that sense, it is definitely unrelenting. But in terms of heaviness, and I guess it depends on how you define heaviness, I don't know if I'd say it's their heaviest, but it's definitely their most energetic. Maybe you could say
That's a
that,
good
and I
point.
would
That's a
agree
good
with
point.
that.
Yeah, I'll turn it around. I think it's their most fast paced. I think it's their most
Mhm.
energetic. I think it's their most unrelenting album.
Yeah. Oh, I
Which
agree with that.
scratch it. You're right. So like from like a breakdown or like just atmosphere perspective, I would probably agree with you guys. But in terms of just like a chainsaw of songs
Mhm.
in their arsenal, it scratches an itch for me that'll come from time to time. And I think that there are some moments on here that like the savage sound matches so well with the sort of the struggles that are talked through in this album. Because I mentioned it earlier, but I'm sure as you guys know, this is I guess like Garrett went through had to go to like a mental health
Mm-hmm.
facility for a while before this album came out, and so I feel like you can really understand that by listening to the pacing of this album, sort of the manic panic
Mhm.
that is
Yeah.
throughout this album.
Yeah.
Translate the Night, it kicks off with, I mean, man, like it's just a gigantic track where the main theme is that like words can't explain the extent of trauma sometimes. And you go into Trilogy, which is another breakneck track, into Second Son, which is a personal sort of deep. There are moments of again real intense fast. It just the manic feeling that you get through some of these songs, which is completely the point of those songs and like what those songs want you to feel, is really really intriguing to me. Song for song, it's not as strong, I don't even think, as Superbloom. But again, like I said, Superbloom has Euphoria, and that for real put it down an entire spot for me because I think that's the weakest track on their entire discography, and it's not that close for me.
Whoa.
And
Really?
oh yes, yes, I believe that. I mean, what's weaker?
Honestly, Till We Have Faces.
I was gonna say that.
Till We Have Faces is, and I'm not the biggest Terminal fan either. I'm just gonna
I
say
like
it.
Terminal.
I'm not the
Terminals.
biggest Terminal fan. I'm not the biggest Till We Have Faces fan.
Okay, I see Terminal. I'm also not the biggest fan of. I don't think it's anywhere near as not up my alley as Euphoria. But I
I'm
do agree. Like Terminal does kind of lose me with like the ambient sound and like the sleepier vocals that happen from time to time. But those are broken
Yeah.
up with some really really intense moments. But I can agree with you on honestly both of those.
Yeah, Terminal's a little slower, like you said, sleepy. I also just feel like the lyrics are a little bit more overt than what we're used to with Silent Planet, and that always kind of takes me out as well.
What do you mean?
It's not as metaphorical. It just kind of says what it is. Like he's terminal with like cancer, and it's just am I? It's like I think in the
Oh,
song it
in
says like,
term,
"Am I
I thought you were talking
terminal?"
about it as an album in the whole. I was like,
No, no, no.
kind of agree.
I mean terminal specifically. But it's like he
Yeah,
says like these pills won't scratch the surface if it's cancer. Like am I terminal with cancer? And I don't know.
yeah. I got you.
Obviously a very emotional song personally, and I can't take that away at all. But I think from what we're used to with Silent Planet, I think the lyrics do leave a little bit to be desired.
Yeah, and I think part of that is Garrett. I feel like I remember seeing this somewhere. I should have looked it up before we did this episode. I think it was this album. Garrett talked about like in the songwriting, he was actively trying to be a little less heady, a little less philosophical, to try to make it focus more on the emotional relatability than like the heady conceptual nature of previous Silent Planet albums. Um, I don't necessarily know that I think that's a knock to this album. I think it's like it feels like an exercise in songwriting for the band, and I think they do it well. And they talk about some similar concepts that they've touched on before, like a panopticon. Garrett loves a panopticon. I tell you what.
He sure does. And that song, I'm not a huge fan of either. There
think it's
are
fine.
misses. There are misses on here. Oh yeah, I think
I
that
love Panopticon.
I don't think
Oh.
I don't think that they do the electro effects well in that song. That was something that kind of stood out to me.
But the last 30 seconds might be the best moment in their entire discography.
No, no,
That's
no.
that's a big claim.
That's a big claim.
Well, I guess I love Garrett's lows, and that is like his lowest of the lows in the last 30 seconds there, and I just think it's so bonkers.
It is bonkers, that's for sure. But I mean, an album full or a discography full of such amazing moments.
Sure, fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't know if there's anything on this album
Yeah, I'm not sure either. And again, that's a couple critiques for me, but just to say that I don't think that like those deficiencies
Mm-mm.
outweigh some of the larger deficiencies I have with Superbloom.
Sure.
And I still think that Garrett is conveying some pretty tough stuff.
For sure.
I love the extremely fast paced breakneck moments on this album that we don't get anywhere else in their discography.
Yeah. I think one of the best examples of that is Trilogy.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
far and away my favorite song on this album. And it's crazy that my least favorite Silent Planet song has a 10 out of 10 song like Trilogy. I think that one is maybe the one of the most rich lyrically on the album. You know, I was talking about how he tried to go for a more emotional connection than a intellectual connection, maybe. But I think this song specifically kind of touches on some stuff they've talked about before. It talks about how inescapable information and digital noise is these days, how it's all just static in our heads, essentially. And the fact that we as humans cannot find fulfillment, cannot find peace without stillness, which in and of itself, very interesting concept. But also the way that that concept is translated into the instrumentation of the song is incredible to me. The way the verses are so choppy and loud and the riffs are so in your face, which is awesome. Like it sounds fantastic. The way that contrasts with these very open, very spacey choruses where the guitar work almost just completely drops out of the song into these big just hits that make up the chord progression. That kind of artistic mirroring of the song subject matter is just like one of those things that makes Silent Planet incredible. And it's honestly probably one of my favorite examples of that in this discography. That song is amazing. Plus, the breakdown at the end of it is just nuts. I would also say this is one of my favorite Silent Planet closing tracks. All of their closing tracks are really great. This one just feels like the perfect combination of the build, the we're starting off low, we're starting off slow, with just kind of the subtle instrumentation and the screams, and it slowly builds into this massive drop with this big soaring vocal, and then the heavy part at the end with the breakdown. Also, a song that's kind of split into that the overgrowth 3 act structure. Really great. For me, why this album is so low is for some reason or another, it is just not as sticky to me as other Silent Planet albums.
Yes, Nathan. That's exactly.
I don't find myself wanting to come back to it as much. There's just something about it that doesn't quite catch my ear in the same way. And maybe it's the simpler lyrics. I don't know that that in and of itself could be it. I think the instrumentation is also a little more streamlined. Not all the way through, obviously, because I'm talking about these crazy riffs in Trilogy. Alive as a House Fire is crazy. Like, there's still crazy moments, but I think on the whole, it's kind of more low tuned guitar breakdowns rather than like the choppy staccato, super progressive riffs and stuff like that. Maybe it's the fact that Garrett says a bad word, you know?
Bro, dude.
And Alive as a House Fire is like, Garrett, you're a Christian artist. You can't be saying a swear word. And I think Garrett even talked about that when he came on the show. I think he also talked about how this album, for some reason or another, just didn't quite land. Maybe wasn't as sticky for whatever reason. And so there's all these different things that it could be. I can't point to a single one of them and be like, that's why I don't like this album as much, truthfully. Because when I throw it on, I have a good time when I'm listening to it. To me, I think they refine a lot of their ideas on here on Superbloom and kind of take them in more interesting directions with the sci-fi and the electronic elements, or I should say the further emphasis of electronic elements, because there are some on here, and throughout their entire discography. But I don't know, just for whatever reason, I had to come up with a new methodology because of this album. I would literally shuffle Silent Planet songs at random. If it was my instinct to skip it, I must not like it as much, and I found myself wanting to skip this album more than any of the other ones. when songs came on from it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, and I'm glad you said that, Nathan, about the stickiness, because I should love this album more than I kind of find myself loving. And I'm not really sure why, because, to me, Translate the Night, Trilogy, Second Son, Panopticon, The Sound of Sleep, Alive as a House Fire, I really like all of those songs. But I really think for me, it's the lyrics. This is almost like kind of a turn my brain off and listen and enjoy, rather than sit with the lyrics and how the music and the lyrics are intertwining and playing together to create a message, something that should be reflected upon. And when I'm listening to Silent Planet, that's kind of more what I'm wanting, rather than turn your brain off and listen to this music.
Sure.
And I think that's ultimately why I have it at number 4 and not higher.
Yeah.
So I couldn't agree more once again.
The last thing I'll say, and I'm only bringing this up because I kind of I think it's kind of an interesting through line. I brought it up on the last album. Each Silent Planet album kind of evokes a different emotion in me. And this album to me feels very desperate. And there's like a real sense of manic urgency to it. Kyle, you even used the word manic when you were talking about it. And it's like, wow, maybe it is there, Maybe it's not just an emotion evoked in me. But like with this album talking about so many, like, I think Garrett kind of mentioned this album's about like problems that we have that are very modern. Like it's modern day problems. I think that sense of urgency really ties in well with like these things kind of need to change sooner rather than later, or maybe too late. And I think you really feel that sense of urgency in the pacing of the album, the heaviness, like y'all were talking about earlier. Alive as a House Fire, again, is crazy. And maybe even you feel that urgency in the fact that, Garrett's swearing in this song because, obviously that's a very intentional thing for him to do, because I don't think he does it anywhere else in his discography. So it's like very specific to this song and this topic and the systems in place that are causing these problems and, all this, that, and the other. And sometimes there's just no other language to capture that urgency or that raw emotion. And maybe that's an insufficiency with human language. Another thing that Silent Planet has talked about in their songs. Maybe not. Maybe it's an emotional thing. But it feels very intentional. For some reason, that was a huge deal when that song came out. That Garrett said a bad word, which is just such a silly thing to get hung up on. But here we are. So anyways, this album feels very urgent and pressing and at times manic.
That's one of the reasons I'm drawn to it, is just the message is dire. Like I enjoy sort of the dire. And again, it ties in, like the message is important, but also the feelings of anxiety and kind of mental breakdown and that sort of panic emotion. And so the dance between those two, I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
But, I have my haters.
Hey, you do. And like that sense of like talking about anxiety and panic, I think also ties in with like you were talking about Garrett's experience leading up to this album being in a very dark place. That is a very serious thing, obviously. And so I think it all just ties into this album, that there is a lot to like on, despite it being so low on my list. Like that's the thing about Silent Planet. They have no misses. Something had to be last. And for me, it was just this album, not for any other reason than I have no reason. It's just not as sticky to me. And that's my take.
Yeah.
So Kyle, we got 2 more albums. We're all aligned on what the top 2 are.
But will they be in the same spot?
That is a good question. I don't know. I really don't.
We'll see. My number 2 is When the End Began.
No.
Yes. Good.
Oh,
Jeff,
yes.
I did kind of see this coming, I will say.
That's fair.
I mean, it's
an exceptional album.
I mean, it's an album that's dang near a masterpiece. So,
yep.
Jeff, take the floor. This is your favorite album. Give me the deets.
Yeah, I mean, so thematically, this album is about the apocalypse, specifically from a Nietzschean perspective of the eternal recurrence. This idea that when the end happens, there will be something that will reemerge from it. And it's this idea that when the world ends, the world will return infinitely. And so we're kind of living in this infinite return over and over and over again. And there's a lot of deep metaphorical takeaways you could have from that. Are we making the same mistakes over and over and over again? Or is there redemption after apocalypse? It's a lot of interesting questions, and I think this album touches on them in these questions in a beautiful way. But I said that I love Garrett most when he's on those lows, and this album is filled with the lows. Those low screams are everywhere, littered throughout this album, and I absolutely cannot get enough. On top of the fact that this album has such a dark kind of, I know ominous, we used that before, but ominous ambience to it. It feels destructive. It feels apocalyptic from beginning to end. And that starts immediately. I mean, obviously, Thus Spoke is a great intro, but really that feeling starts with the new eternity. And you get that. And I love the first line, "Mother, tell me, why do the waters make us sick?" I mean, so evocative. So much imagery in that. This album also kind of just has a connection to me because this is when I got into Silent Planet. But that first line in the new eternity is what I imagine when I imagine Silent Planet. That right there to me is Silent Planet, and this album to me is Silent Planet, and it is the album that I consider their best going forward because of that. I think the new eternity, Northern Fires, and After Dusk are probably the best 3-song stretch in their discography, in my opinion.
Insane run. Just a bonkers way to open an album.
So good.
I would also throw Visible Unseen in there too. That song is excellent.
Yeah, I mean, and I also think Vanity Asleep, but yeah.
And Share the Body. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, just put the whole album in there.
Yeah, the whole album is nuts.
Yeah. The Northern Fires is a historical reflection on the Spanish Civil War and the bombing of Guernica. What an interesting aspect of history to look at, but it's so perfect in an album about the apocalypse, needless suffering, the burning of a city. I just think it's awesome. And the hook on that song, so catchy, and the screams, the breakdowns are just awesome. But After Dusk, I think that song was so punchy, and it feels like you're being punched in the face immediately. And I think that's exactly what they're trying to provoke in that song, is kind of a slap in the face, because the song is about the destruction of the ecosystem and kind of the human blindness towards what is being done to the planet and to the ecosystem. I mean, just when you're talking about the apocalypse, you don't get much more apocalyptic than, the climate crisis and kind of what is occurring. And I think that song expresses that emotion so well. But yeah, Visible Unseen, Vanity of Sleep, Share the Body. I go on and on and on. Lower Empire is really cool, and it has those kind of robotic bits throughout that I think really helps to shake that song up. And then Depths 3. It's the culmination of the Depths trilogy, and just more existential reflection, wrestling with faith, hope, in this idea of the apocalypse. To me, this album represents the apotheosis of Silent Planet. To me, it represents them musically and sonically at their best, but also, talking about themes that I really think are interesting to talk about, and the end times, the apocalypse from a Nietzschean perspective. It kind of scratches that philosophical itch that I have, and I can't get enough of this album.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, Depths 3, is it the best Silent Planet song?
No, but it's the best Depths.
Yes.
I mean, it's an incredible song, and I think let
me clarify. I don't think it's the best Silent Planet song.
Oh,
but I do think it's very, 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 very strong.
It is very strong. Looking at it in the sense of yes, it ties into the theme of the album. It also ties in the overarching story between these first 3 albums, where Garrett's talking about this vision. He meets these women. Here's the stories of their suffering on the night God slept. He goes into Everything Was Sound, Panopticon, seeing all these different character types and the things that they struggle with, based on the Enneagram and all this stuff. We'll get into it in a little bit. That album ends with all the people putting the things that bring them down into him, and emerges into this tree of life. And then Thus Spoke opens up with the tree of life basically, or I guess this happens at the end of Everything Was Sound. The tree of life basically destroys everything. It is the end. And then Thus Spoke picks up immediately after, and the things have ended. And Depths 3 ends with Garrett alone, drifting through this void, this infinite nothingness. I guess it's moonlit, as we talked about the lyrics earlier. Sister Moon, are we all that's left? And the way that ties in with what he describes in the track analysis is like the way he experienced depression at the time that he was writing this album, lyrically, and just it felt like solitude, isolation, infinite nothingness. And the way he encapsulates all of that in this song is so incredible. And just all the different things it's balancing it's mind-blowing songwriting. And it is, I think, the best closing track in their discography. Iridescent's really good. So it's one of those two. But it is an incredible track.
Yeah, it's also fascinating, and I know we continue to touch on it, but like his ability to take stories and internalize the pain and the emotion and create something really, really impactful from it.
Yeah.
Like Firstborn is musically, like for me, not one of their strongest tracks until like I learned it's about the suffering and the pain of losing a child. And like the opening, "You'll Bury Me" is the Arabic translation of, I'm not even going to try to say it, of the "Ya Bernie." There I go. And the quote in the parentheses after that. But like, it's so intentional, and that song is so hard to listen to at times, where it's just like it's empty. It feels like the depressive, hopeless, like it's almost hard to bear, which makes it so much more impactful and so much more beautiful. It's a talent that maybe one person ever has. I don't know, but Garrett has that talent, and it's really, really fascinating to listen to him sort of look at this holistic, macro, apocalyptic theme throughout songs and throughout the album, but then like go to a very micro struggle of losing a firstborn and in absence. I know I've mentioned in the last episode, but like watching somebody forget who they are with Alzheimer's or dementia, and it's this whole new world that he's able to unlock and open up of not only like of pain but also sympathy, and also sort of the human element of like we got to get back to connecting with each other and not just not just classifying each other.
Definitely. And I feel like his ability to be so evocative through his lyricism, and really capture these emotions has to come from who he is as a very caring person. There's no other way that you could be this evocative lyrically, and this understanding of all these different difficulties and problems that people have, because I mean, it's just so incredible and so touching, a lot of the times, like the way that he is able to describe these very heady or emotional concepts that oftentimes you can't quite put words to. The way he uses imagery to describe them is really incredible. That feeling you're talking about with Firstborn, again, I'll pick up on the through line again. For me, this album is very like melancholic. Obviously it's heavy and aggressive at times, but like there is a deep sense of like longing for things to be better throughout this entire album, experiencing all these different apocalypses and these cycles. It feels like, I wish for better for this world, but we feel so far from it. This whole album feels so melancholic to me. Musically, it's excellent. Like, this is like phenomenal metalcore. The New Eternity, I feel like really sets the tone for that ethereal and melancholic atmosphere. But it's also like so many of the songs on this album, I think more so than any other Silent Planet album, it has a great chorus. Like this album is full of really fantastic choruses. And that feels like the sonic evolution for this album for Silent Planet.
Yeah.
Obviously they had choruses beforehand, but not the way they do on this album.
Yeah.
Yeah. Standout tracks for me are like Visible Unseen.
Incredible.
Or, excuse me, sorry. Yeah, Visible Unseen is a huge standout. Vanity of Sleep, just the sort of creepy, chaotic, sonic, ethereal noises that they play throughout is really, really fascinating, especially a song that's centered around sleep. And again, I mean, we can say it, I'll say it a million times. It's amazing the lyrical depth, but also the musical depth and how it matches and how you
Yeah.
can really feel it.
Northern Fires, Jeff, you mentioned it. The part where Garrett starts absolutely spitting on that track. I've been digging through timelines, historical bylines. I find the fatal flaw in our design lies between thoughts we had and words we knew, between what we're told and what is true. Who fuels the fascist, a classist, inculcating the masses and passes under the divine continence of contrition? Bro, you may or may not believe this. I do not have that written down in front of me. I just know that part because I've heard it so many times.
You do. Oh wow.
It's awesome. That whole section of the song is instrumentally so cool. Vocally, it's got so much energy to it. It's awesome. After Dusk, another fun instrumental moment when that song like picks up momentum coming out of that first chorus and it just like speeds up into this faster delivery and the up tempo drumming and then it just drops you into this nasty breakdown. It's so fun. Share the Body's another fun heavy one. I hit the bottom, then it hit me back. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Share the Body is awesome.
Yeah. I think, Kyle, you mentioned it as a major standout. Visible Unseen is one of the, I mean, obviously it's great instrumentally, but lyrically, I think it is one of the most topical and thoughtful examples of like a Silent Planet song, especially, you know, the song in general is about the LGBTQ community, the homelessness crisis in that community, you know, often spurred on by religious families, you know, turning away from their children, which is a terrible and tragic thing. And for this to be a song about faith and, you know, the LGBT community's relationship to faith from obviously ultimately like someone who is a Christian is so interesting. And I think Garrett really does a good job of embodying, you know, what I personally think Christianity should look like throughout this song. Because, I mean, it is a very honest look at the way that the church as a whole has mishandled loving the LGBT community, really by not loving them at all. And I feel like often the church in America, especially, gets so caught up in the is it right or wrong debate that they've kind of missed the entire point that these are real people with real lived experiences. And I think, you know, Garrett's actually kind of spoken on this and said something similar. But, you know, regardless of whether or not you think it's right or wrong, according to your own personal convictions and your own understanding of the original text, the original translations, and all of that, you need to be asking yourself, if you're a Christian, how are you going to respond to this community of people? And for me personally, as a Christian, you know, the way I want to respond is by mirroring the way that Jesus lived his life and by doing what he calls his followers to do, which is loving those around us, you know, not by condemning people or standing on the sidewalk screaming and telling them, you know, how to live or they're going to go to hell if they don't, but by giving people the respect they deserve as people made in the image of God and loving them and treating them the way that I would want to be treated. You know, the same way I would treat anyone in my life, you know, not by casting them out. Because the Bible, you know, it isn't just standalone lessons on morality or a checklist on how God wants you to live your life. You know, there's a central through line, and the whole story arc is not about how we fall short of God's standards and he wants us to be better, you know, of our own accord, but it's about God's relentless pursuit of mankind despite the ways that we fall short and despite the ways that we're imperfect. If you look at it, that's the whole reason that Christ died on the cross. You know, we couldn't and we can't save ourselves. So Jesus lived the perfect life that we couldn't and died in our place to pay the debt that we owe so that we can have a relationship with God and dwell in his presence personally. And so, really, in that sense, God doesn't see us for our actions. He sees us as he sees his son Jesus as perfect. Our actions, even what we think are the most moral and good actions, are not what save us. And so, why do Christians get so caught up in telling people who don't believe how they should be living their lives? How could you even try to hold them to that standard when it was never even your actions, never even my actions that saved me in the first place? Anyways, to kind of tie this all together, as Christians, we are called to love people around us. Jesus himself calls us to love our neighbors. And I think he calls us to do this regardless of whether or not they believe the same things that we do. Because at the end of the day, all people are made in the image of God. And if we believe God is a God of love, which I do, then I want to be a reflection of that love to those around me. And I just think this song does such a good job of thoughtfully critiquing the way the church has fallen short in this way. And I realize I kind of hopped onto a little sermon soapbox here in the middle of our metalcore podcast, but I think it's kind of an important issue, especially as the cultural version of Christianity, here in America, you could say conservative nationalist version of Christianity, which I would wager is not real Christianity at all. That version of it really misses the mark here as it does in so many places. And it only seems to be getting worse, especially now as certain politicians and influencers and all this, that, and the other try to twist a faith of love into just a vehicle for sowing hatred in the name of nothing more than selfish ambition and personal gain. And I think this often overshadows the true Christianity that is actually interested in the teachings of Jesus and having a personal relationship with him. And so I think this song and Garrett through this song is just a great representation of, what I personally think Christianity ought to be. And that is thinking critically and loving others regardless of how they live or what they believe. And so I did want to take a moment. I had to shout that out because I think it's, something that I really care a lot about, obviously, because I'm sure I just gave a 5-minute talk on it. But also, I just think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back just the point that we were talking about earlier of like Eric is clearly extremely empathetic and sees the person.
Yeah, definitely.
In every situation. And that's why his music kind of oozes like the experience and the suffering aspect more so than, like you were saying, traditionally people see Christianity as.
Definitely. I like this thought exercise. I was actually just talking about this with someone. We were talking about if his ministry was exactly the same in his second coming and he happened to come to America, who would he hang out with? I would wager
the Discourse boys.
It's us, baby. Come on, let's go. I would wager it would be the groups that are marginalized by the church, like the LGBT community. I think that's who he would spend time with and share dinners with and all this kind of stuff, because that's kind of who he hung out with the first time I came around, the marginalized of society, the tax collectors, if you want to be specific. But it wasn't the religious leaders of the day because they had kind of missed the point, and that sounds kind of similar to me.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point, Nathan. And one thing I wanted to say is that, whether or not you agree with, what Nathan's saying or what Garrett's saying in here, especially for Garrett, you can't deny his consistency. And that in every song, in all of the ways, in all his videos that he talked about, it's always person first language. It's always saying ultimately, life is about experiencing other people and the love for other people, and everything else follows from that, putting the person first. And I really, really appreciate that, especially listening through these albums again. You definitely get a sense of that person first philosophy that he has. And speaking of visible unseen, Nathan, I mean, the chorus is so sad and so powerful. And then that part at the end where it kind of breaks the music and it says, I never thought to ask, when you said she was asleep, did you hear my disbelief? The bitter irony that I wait for God as she dies beside me. I think echoes a lot of what you were just saying.
Yeah, definitely. It's powerful stuff because it's a very real thing and a very tragic thing. Also, shout out Silent Planet. They used to have shirts that said like "Heal Us of Our," and then it was a "Heal Us of Our," and it was like a short list of things. And it was like religion and a couple others, and then one of them was homophobia. And he's like, that sparked a lot of conversations for a Christian band to be saying "Heal us of our homophobia." Garrett, if you happen to hear this and have any of those lying around in a large, let me know, because they are not on the shop anymore, and I would love to have one. It's awesome, and that's the message of Jesus. Love others.
And
Anyways,
that's on God.
and so true, and that's Bible discourse.
Hell yeah.
Oh no, I missed it. Disciple discourse. It was
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. What a fumble. All right, cut the whole segment.
In the show. We're cutting it all out.
Now, guys, if you
Good
guys
album.
want to hear, if you guys want us to pray for you and hear more Bible discourse, just sign up for the Patreon. We'll have a new membership of $100 a month.
That seems like a sin. This is getting into the what?
Yeah, Martin Luther, shout out. Not Martin Luther King, although shout out Martin Luther King as well.
We're shouting out both, to be clear. But
honestly, I'm shouting out only
that.
Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther was kind of a rascal at the end of his life.
Whoa, but he did a lot of good. Did the ends justify the means? Wait, are we judging him by his actions?
Kind of. I mean, what are we talking about right now? Are we?
I don't know.
Are we good?
Are we pontificating? Garrett, what have you done to us? This is way too intellectual to be a Discog Discourse episode. Kyle, what's your favorite album?
Jeff, do you have any parting thoughts with your favorite album?
No, it's fantastic. Everyone should listen to it. It's definitely a generational album for sure.
Generational. Crazy it's not their best, though.
Crazy that Everything Was Sound is their best.
So true. Good transition.
Nathan, why is this your number one, brother?
Not only the best Silent Planet album, but maybe one of the best metalcore albums ever written. Genuinely teetering on 10 out of 10 album territory for me, which is extremely rare. I think the last time I brought up the possibility of a perfect album was the Avenged Sevenfold episode way back in the day when we were talking about City of Evil. Like, I look at that, I'm like, perfect. I look at this, perfect. We kind of talked about it a little bit already. The concept alone, brilliant. Each song representing a different character type as described by the Enneagram system, which you can see on the cover, and a common mental barrier that personality type may struggle with. And then the way towards the end of the album, those things intersect. Incredible.
When like Inherit the Earth and Inhabit the Wound are like the same, like they're sister songs.
Yep.
And they have like the same a lot. You guys watch the videos. Come on. I like just having like the same melodic structure.
Yep.
And sort of having it resemble like a full circle moment, which is what the whole point of this album is. Dude, come on. Don't get me fired up, Garrett.
The physical, I guess, representation of this idea is he's in a panopticon and seeing all these people in these different cells. If you don't know what a panopticon is, I didn't either. Garrett describes it as like this prison structure where all the cells are in a circular orientation around a center tower that has lights shown on it so that the prisoners can't tell when the one guard is looking at them. This one guard kind of narrates their lives, so they always think he's watching, even though he may not be. He comes to find out in the album that he is the guard in the center, and that's why he knows so many things about these people, because he's been watching them. And then, like I said earlier, they plant the seed of all their burdens in his chest. That becomes the tree of life and breaks not only the prison, the panopticon, but ushers in the end of the world that is explored then thematically and when the end begins. It's genius what's happening here. Then you break that down to the songs. Psych Escape, about schizophrenia, bringing in Spencer from Under Oath to pair with Garrett as each of them takes on like a specific personality being depicted in this song. Also, shout out the combination of Garrett and Under Oath. We had Garrett on the Under Oath episode. Go check that out. Understanding Love is Lost, about depression and how about loving something inevitably means that you will lose it. Panic Room, PTSD, in the opening section of the song, lyrically and vocally being written in such a way that it is meant to emulate a racing mind bouncing from thought to thought. Who is doing these things? No one, only Silent Planet. Kyle, you texted us Redivider as one of the greatest lyrical achievements ever, specifically about bipolar disorder. And Garrett talks about, this is something he struggled with personally. And the way the song goes is meant to go from pole to pole and then back with that A to B, B to A structure lyrically is incredible and so specific. It's like, how did he think of that? And then how did he execute on that? Because that is an insane idea for the song to be a lyrical palindrome. Nuts.
And like, it makes sense. It makes sense.
It makes sense.
There
That's
and
the
back.
crazy thing. It's unbelievable lyricism. And I'll shout out two more, and I'm going track by track here. These are my two favorites, I think. Nervosa.
Yep.
About anorexia. I think, to me, some of the most compelling lyrics on the whole album. Just the haunting atmosphere of that song, paired with, getting the vocalist at the time, at least, from Norma Jean to give that anguish-infused chorus. It's unbelievable. That is a perfect song. And then, there's a little interlude. And then you get Orphan, which is incredible. Sing songs of life when all we know is death, a world of orphans. What a hook. The riffs in that song are next level. It's just that progressive chaos, and it's so excellent. And we kind of talked about it earlier, the progressive instrumental era of Silent Planet, where these riffs are running all up and down these scales up the neck. The rhythms are so choppy and staccato and just breakneck whiplash inducing. Like, the song structures are crazy. It's just all so well thought out and well executed and just attention grabbing from start to finish. This is a masterpiece and one of the best albums I've ever heard.
I couldn't agree more with that. You mentioned Redivider, which I will fit if that's not their best song, or at least in the top three. But
yeah,
again, just the skill it takes and the talent it takes, and I can't imagine having what it takes to let that one rip. But like, I mean, from Panic Room to Orphan, those are four of the finest songs in the genre in rock and roll you'll ever hear. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Nervosa, and it's similar to what I was saying earlier about Firstborn, of like, Livery is almost hard to listen to. Like, it's because of the subject matter and because of the anguish and the despair and like the true emotion that's being put into every single word. I mean, it gives you shivers. It's unbelievable. And I mean, those four songs are four of the finest tracks, again, you will ever hear in the genre, lyrically, instrumentally, from any standpoint you want to look at. They're perfect songs. And not to mention, Inherit the Earth, like we've talked about, is also a perfect song that goes perfectly with Inhabit the Wound, which Inherit the Earth, Inhabit the Wound. You get it. You can make those connections. It's a circle, and it's staggering. It's as profound as you've ever heard. And by the way, this following The Night God Slept, and then being able to clean up and completely banish all production shortcomings, is phenomenal, because this album is produced perfectly, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's a lyrical, a production, and just a masterpiece that I have to look at all the albums that we've reviewed, but it's up there, man. It's up there with the best. It's
definitely.
It's something you got to listen to, and like, you can't just really listen to. You gotta dig into as well.
Yeah, and we have I don't think we talked about First Father yet,
It's
but
so
that song is
good.
so
So
cool.
good.
And the one lyric that says, I stood atop the world, its asymmetry laid bare in front of me. Thanatophobic societies taking life to mourn their tragedies. And
Oh,
thanatophobia being the irrational fear of death. So these societies with an irrational fear of death taking other life to mourn their tragedies. I just think it's really cool. And that song is so lyrically dense and so interesting. And that line in particular stood out to me. Just the way that these songs, their melodies and the ambiance and just the lyrics and the rhythm, how it matches the mental illness and the mental barrier that these characters are facing, like in Psychscape, for example. A schizophrenic patient trying to escape a mental health facility, how frantic that song feels,
yeah.
compared to Nervosa, like Nathan was saying, representing anorexia, and how off-putting that song is, and how there's this dread to it, and the chorus is just perfect with the way that it's delivered. And all these songs, you'll find that. And personally, as someone interested in mental health, I think that this album is so cool, and the way that that's done, and obviously I think done very respectfully and done in a way that really
Yeah.
represents, I think, the emotional burden that these disorders put upon people. And I think it's done wonderfully. And I really, I don't have anything bad to say about this album, to be
No.
honest.
It
I really
is like
don't.
it is perfect on every front. Not a bad song. Production is crisp. Lyrics are incredible. Vocal delivery is on point. Like it's everything. And Kyle, I mean, you said it. Panic Room to Orphan might be the best run of songs in the entire genre. Like that is
Hmm.
10, 10, 10. Interlude 10. It's just, it's nuts how good that is. I'll shout out one of
Yeah.
my favorite lyrics from the album from a song we haven't even talked about yet, Dying in Circles. The opening stanza, you could say, because this is like legit poetry, when he says, beside the shadow of a frozen chapel, under the marriage of the cross and crown, outside the privilege of the chosen ones, the image of God is sleeping on the ground. Spires pierce the sky like steel through your hands. Planks from our eyes plunged into your side. Water poured out, but we want wine. You said, take and remember, but we always forget. Like, just the profound imagery and the way that he's describing the comfort of church for some people, and the fact that like they go in to hear these messages of caring for others, and then right outside the very image of God is sleeping on the ground without a home, without a place. It's, and that song kind of being about like the relationship between church and some of the, or I guess not the relationship, but some of the common issues that occur in religion over faith. It's just, I guess that's the stuff I'm drawn to lyrically in Silent Planet's discography, because I think it says a lot, and it's just mastercraft lyricism there.
Yeah, I can't say it better. I mean, this is listen to the track by track analysis and let yourself think.
Understanding Love as Lost is such a cool song too. I think, if
It
I'm
is.
correct, this is the one about depression and ultimately taking one's life. And I think it's done talking about different authors who have
Yes.
ended up taking their life. And what a cool concept! What an interesting, these authors who are so successful and have done so much for the literary world, and yet they still go on to battle with depression and end up taking their own life. I don't know. There's a lot that you could think about in there, that,
Definitely.
success isn't always everything. You don't always know what someone is going through, regardless of, how tremendous they are at what they do. I don't know. I just think it's a cool song, and I think it's done beautifully, and I think the message is very interesting, especially using literary characters.
Literature, Silent Planet lyric, you know?
It's tougher than you might think. And if you think you could have done it better, I challenge you to do it.
I was truthfully a little worried that it was going to be too easy. So as soon as y'all got the second one wrong, I was like, oh yeah, we might have something here.
It was difficult.
uh, if you've listened to this show before, if you've ever listened to the three of us talk about music, you know this is not an intellectual podcast. This is a podcast where we usually sit around and go, I like the breakdowns on this album more than the non-breakdowns on the other one. And the fact that we've spent so much time talking about the lyricism and digesting all of these very heady topics, I think speaks volumes to not only how thought-provoking they are, but how well executed it is. And I think these first three albums in particular in this discography, some of the best lyricism you'll ever hear, certainly in metalcore, maybe ever. It is just incredible stuff, and I could not recommend this album, this run of albums, this entire discography enough. It's just excellence from start to finish.
Well said.
Do we have any other final closing thoughts?
I'm excited to see what they do next.
Me too, man. Oh, I will throw out, I almost didn't do it for this album after doing it for most of the other ones. This album evokes like a really strong yearning feeling, like a yearning for a time when mental health is not the pressing issue that it is. Like there's a real sense of longing in a lot of the atmosphere of the songs. And I think this is one of the more like subtle ones for me that it's hard to like put a word to or a reason to why. But a song like Nervosa, I think really encapsulates it. That is just harrowing. And there's that sense of wanting better, even amidst all of this suffering. And I think Garrett, part of what makes this such a compelling album, his time as a therapist, doing counseling and interacting with people who have gone through these mental health experiences. People first. It's people first. That's what it's all about. And he conveys that so well. So Kyle, will you read us your list from your least favorite to your favorite, and we'll start to close this thing out?
Absolutely. My rankings of Silent Planet albums. My fifth favorite is The Night God Slept. Number 4, Superbloom. Number 3, Iridescent. Number 2, When the End Began. Number 1, one of the great metalcore albums ever. One of the great albums ever. Everything with Sound.
Excellent stuff. I do like that our lists are pretty different. I wasn't sure if that was going to happen on this episode, but I'm glad it did. So the last thing we're going to do, I mentioned it earlier. On our Patreon, you can sign up for the Die Hard tier. It's our second tier. You not only get the bonus episodes and the insider information and all this, that, and the other, but you can also send me your rankings for the band that we're talking about, and we'll play it and react to it now. I'm very curious to see how these go. It's the first of the year. You know, let's shake off the rust from the end of the year discussions, get back into some real deal ranking. This first one's from Derek.
Silent Planet albums from worst to best. The Night God Slept, Iridescent, Superbloom, When the End Began. Happy New Year.
Forgot one. Maybe we're not shaking off the rust as much as I thought we were, but that is okay. I think he actually...
Pretty good list, though.
He didn't say... Wait, did he say everything was sound?
I don't think so.
That's all right. Listen, he had the end began. He had when the end began at the top. It means everything was sound was either 1 or 2. He just, it's all right, Derek.
You say that. Derek actually messaged me. I do remember seeing this earlier now. He said, forgot to list everything with sound in my recording, but it's number 3.
Wait. Interesting.
Very close to my list, and so
I was about to say
I appreciate it.
It's flipped, and like again, we heaped praise on Superbloom for kind of scratching an itch that the others didn't, and so that just that did it for Derek. I do think it's wild. But hey, all right.
The thing about Silent Planet is I can't really be too upset with any list order, because they're all excellent in like mildly different ways. So I'm like, yeah, if your personal taste takes you to Superbloom, awesome. Great album. Can't knock it. This next one is from Nathaniel. His list is as follows.
Let's go. Great band to start off the new year. My ranking is 5, When the End Began, 4, The Night God Slept. 3, Everything Was Sound. 2, Superbloom. Number 1, without question, is Iridescent. Peace out.
Holy
You know, hurts my heart. That ranking hurts my heart, but that's honestly more of the ranking that I kind of expected one of you guys to bring out. Honestly, I'm surprised we all agreed Iridescent was closer to the bottom.
Yeah,
I feel like Iridescent's pretty popular, just on like for what I've seen on the internet.
Yeah, Nathaniel, you're really testing my theory that I just said. You know, I can't really be too upset with any list. I can't. I mean, when the end begin at the bottom is crazy, but I respect it. I respect it, Nathaniel. I do.
I think you are brave. You are brave. I'm a brave. I like bravery.
There is something to be said for, hey, have your list, share it. We love that. We don't bow down to conventional lists, you know? We don't do what the man tells us to do.
Dude, if I'm the man, I'm telling that list to go to the bottom of the ocean. But that's all right. I'm not the man.
Are you sending it to a prison, a panopticon of sorts? This last one's from Seth.
Here is my ranking for Silent Planet's discography. At number 5, When the End Began. Number 4, Everything Was Sound. Number 3, The Night God Slept, specifically the re-recorded. At number 2, we have Iridescent. And number 1, Superbloom.
Nathaniel, I'm sorry for everything I just said to you.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I'm at a loss for words.
I think this is the first time I've ever been speechless.
I think that might be rage bait. Seth, I feel like Seth does that sometimes. I just rage bait.
You think
us.
Seth is baiting us?
Dude, Seth definitely wants us to get angry.
I think it just shows Silent Planet's discography how strong it is, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's true. And maybe it also shows that we're too similar. We're not generating enough discussions because our lists are too similar.
Also no.
Also no.
Also no. You guys are just throwing bones whenever you can, but I'll be brave.
Hey,
I'll be brave just like Seth.
Guys, thank you so much for your list and your ongoing support of the show. And thank you to all our patrons for your ongoing support of the show. That really does mean a lot to us, even if we do give you a hard time from time to time. So, guys, I think that'll do it for this episode to kick off 2026. Thank y'all for listening, and we'll see y'all on the next one.